Hey guys, Dan here alongside with Joe, aka Merlin.
Thank you.
And we are not doing a Freaks and Geeks video this week.
No.
It is Friday, but we are switching it up a little bit, and we'll explain why in a minute. But another new thing we have going on is the format of the show. We have my camcorder here. Usually I record the videos on this guy, my little Canon camcorder. And it's served me well over the years, but we only had about 26 minutes of recording time before the battery died, and for us, it just isn't.
No, it never is.
I mean, we're talking about two different movies here, and usually these videos, things come out, we talk and talk and talk.
They go on and on.
They go on. We run off at the mouth, and so I said, I recently discovered about the 4K capabilities on my phone, so you suggested that we try maybe at some point a 4K video and see how it looks.
I don't do it that much. I probably should, but I know a lot of people record from their phones and they have good quality videos. So hey,
and it looks good on the screen here.
From we can see.
We'll see how it looks on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, look, my video camera's okay, but it's certainly not like a top of the line camcorder.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe this will be the new standard. I do like to have my phone so I can look things up as we're talking.
That is true. You do that.
So I don't think this will be like every single time, but I do think it looks pretty good. But anyway, we had a viewer request for Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know me, everybody that watches my channel. I do nothing at half speed, so I decided to get both of the big 80s Pee-wee movies.
Yeah.
Big Top Pee-wee, threw that in there as well. And I had never seen either movie in full. I've certainly seen clips of Big Adventure.
Me neither.
And you neither. We reviewed the Netflix Pee-wee movie a few years ago.
Yes.
To pretty favorable reviews.
I liked it, yeah.
About a B minus kind of range, I think. But I grew up with Pee-wee's Playhouse on the Saturday mornings. Great show. And so that was sort of my main introduction into Pee-wee. But yeah, we had a viewer request from...
Colin?
I believe it's Colin or Connor. I think it's Colin. He's a new subscriber.
Oh, nice.
And he watched my video for the kissing booth. It is Connor, I think. Anyway, and he was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about reviewing Pee-wee's Big Adventure?" And I had not. It didn't really. I mean, I don't usually do like older movies. But then I got thinking, this is the anniversary year. It came out in '85. So we looked it up when I was over here the other week, and it came out in August of '85. So this is the anniversary month of Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
So take this into account. If you want a request for a movie or a show, Dan will probably end up doing it.
Yeah, and it's funny. This is actually the second request we've done in the last few weeks because our buddy Tim... recommended that we try Oreos for the food fanatics.
That's right.
And I'll be putting that video up very soon. So there you go. Yeah, I love hearing from you guys. So if you ever want me to review anything, I'm not shy about things. I'll probably do it as long as it's in my wheelhouse. And Pee-wee certainly is.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a character I've loved since I was about 10 years old, I suppose. But you're pretty new to the character.
Yeah, vaguely familiar with him for the most part. I think I saw some bits of the first movie before, but I don't know much about Pee-wee beyond his general status in pop culture.
Right.
That, I know generally the character, but didn't grow with him or anything.
Yeah, and they did reruns on cable through the 90s. He was on ABC Family or whatever, but Cartoon Network actually picked it up for Adult Swim in the early 2000s, and I think that introduced him to a whole new generation of fans that maybe weren't that aware of him.
Adult Swim, huh?
Adult Swim. And you didn't know, speaking of which, you actually didn't even know about the whole big scandal that came out in the early 90s.
Nope.
1991, where he got busted pleasuring himself in a Florida movie theater. The show got canceled and all of this, and he sort of fell out of favor out of the pop culture world for a few years. I mean, he started taking on movie roles as himself. Paul Rubens. He did Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He was on Murphy Brown and stuff like that.
Don't forget Batman.
Well, we're going to talk about Batman in a little bit.
We'll get there.
But that was... I guess that would have been after that, because wasn't that 92?
A little after that, yeah.
Yeah, so okay.
Burton did him a favor, probably.
Could be, yeah. So anyway, so we are here to talk about these two movies, though, and let's sort of get started, I guess, with The Big Adventure.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about Big Top, and then we'll talk about the differences, I guess, between the two.
Sure.
Really, because they're very different movies.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, we'll sort of talk about why. But so Tim Burton directed Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It is his first full-length feature. He had done the Frankenweenie short, but this was his sort of foray into feature films. And Pee-wee was a character that had been around at this point for about 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Rubens tried out for the 1980 season of Saturday Night Live, didn't make the cut, so he came up with his own show that he did in theaters. I guess it was in New York, or maybe it was in LA or something, but it was called the Pee Wee Herman Show, and so he did this character, and it was like an hour-long show.
Okay.
People went to see it, whatever. And Phil Hartman, who would end up on SNL about 5 years later, was a big part of that as well. He was on Pee Wee's Playhouse as well. And he co-wrote this screenplay for Big Adventure.
Okay.
So that's sort of the background of the character. Burton, I guess, maybe sort of knew the stage show and got involved that way. And Pee Wee had seen Frankenweenie and really liked it, thought it was cool. So they sort of had a kinship there. So they teamed up for this. And by the way, the success of this film led Warner Brothers to get Burton for that first Batman movie. So if Pee-wee's Big Adventure didn't exist, or if Burton wasn't involved, who knows what the '89 Batman would have looked like.
So it wasn't Beetlejuice then?
Well, he declined Big Top Pee-wee because of Beetlejuice. They asked him to be a part of Big Top Pee-wee, and he said, you know what, I'm kind of working on my own thing here. And because of the success, obviously, of Beetlejuice too, but Beetlejuice was not, I don't think Beetlejuice was Warner Brothers.
I don't know, did it?
I'm trying to think. Because we ran it at the theater last year for Halloween. You know what, maybe it is Warner Brothers. I can't remember.
Interesting.
But either way, right from the start, all of the Burtonisms are here. Yeah. And we'll talk about some of the Easter eggs. But Danny Elfman did the score.
Yeah,
so immediately it has that Burton feel, the Danny Elfman feel. Danny Elfman, by the way, unless I'm remembering this wrong, has done every Burton feature.
Just about.
I mean, maybe there's one or two that he hasn't, but I'm not even sure.
It's one of the great director-composer things like John Williams and
it really
Spielberg.
Is.
Like, they do. He does. Like, when you see a Tim Burton movie, chances are Danny Elfman did the soundtrack.
If that score's not underneath it, it doesn't feel right.
Like
It
a
feels
Burton
disconnected.
Movie. Yeah. It fits the visuals and the style and the tone.
Yeah. So anyway, the basic plot of this film is Pee-wee's bike gets stolen. He's got this hot bike that we learn about in the beginning, first in the dream sequence, and then in the opening sort of couple of scenes. His jerky neighbor Francis is having a birthday, and what does he want for his birthday but this bike? And like Pee-wee himself, Francis is kind of like a man-child.
Yeah. Except not really. We gotta talk about that.
We'll talk about all of it.
I know we will.
And so as the movie progresses, he goes into town with his bike and goes to the magic shop and and it gets stolen as he comes out of the bike shop where his friend Dottie is kind of hitting on him, more than kind of, I suppose. And so then it becomes sort of a road movie, and Pee-wee is hitchhiking his way and making friends along the way and to get to the Alamo because this fortune teller told him that's where the bike is. So anyway, I guess we could do spoilers because this movie is 30 years old and it's not like
warning here.
Warning. I think usually I don't do spoilers on this channel, but that's more for new movies. I think when we're analyzing something like this,
there's no way.
I think you got to do spoilers. So we'll if you've never seen these movies.
You could stop now.
You could stop
come
now
back later
and watch them, I guess. Watch at least the first one. We'll get to Big Top Pee-wee in a second. There could be a reason why. Why our viewer only suggested Big Top
Connor
Pee-wee.
only requested this one, and he's like, we should watch both.
I don't know. I don't know about it.
Okay, remember you were like, Joe, if you like the first one, then we can do the second.
Yes, I made him a friendly sort of agreement at the beginning of Pee-wee's Big Adventure because you weren't, I don't think, looking forward to this at all.
No, I had no real interest. I just
and God bless you, what a friend.
Just did to hang out with him.
Yeah, he wants to hang out with me. Always loves talking about movies.
No interest in this character. I never cared about it ever.
I said, look, let's just watch the first one. If you hate the first one, or if you really are uninterested in watching Big Top Pee-wee, I'll just watch it by myself and tack it on to the end of our video. But, spoilers, obviously, since we're here talking about both.
I kind of like
you liked the first one enough to go to the second. But aren't you glad that we actually watched both? Because it's quite the compare and contrast.
It's actually very interesting.
So that's the basic plot of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Let's break it down.
Man, there's actually a lot to break down, and I'm not even sure where to start.
I guess let's start with the character. Because you, like you said, are not only not that familiar with the character, but you don't care.
I didn't care.
Whereas I love the character.
You loved him, grew up with him. My little bit that I've been exposed to him, I wasn't interested. And even in his initial introduction in the movie, I was kind of annoyed and irritated. I'm like, if the whole movie's like this, I'm going to hate it.
He wakes up from the dream sequence. He's in what is a crude version of the Playhouse. He does the
every little thing.
He has the Mr. Cheese cereal, and he's and I don't think you like the man-child nature of him.
The man-child weird thing. I guess I didn't get it initially. Like if it was just him in the house being literally a grown man acting as a kid, and just kind of like overreacting and everything and being hyper exaggerative. That didn't do it for me too much by itself.
Okay.
I noticed you were laughing pretty much right away.
Yeah.
You found it endearing.
Well,
and I was kind of like,
that's the Pee-wee that we see in the Playhouse every week.
Yes.
Doing his little stuff, having breakfast, talking to the furniture, whatever.
And I was like, so this is Pee-wee's Playhouse. I know a little bit about this, but I'm like, I never really was interested. It never did anything for me, whatever. But
what was the turning point? Because you liked when he talked to the neighbor about the watering.
And I noticed this. And that was the beginning. I wasn't sold on him by that point. But you're right. That is the nugget of it, I think, because it was Pee-wee's interacting with other people and then finding out more about the world and how much it informed Pee-wee and realizing that this whole character, there's just a lot more going on with it. And it's very interesting.
So what was you said that was sort of the start of the turning. What was the scene or the line or whatever? Was it when he went to the magic shop?
No,
you like that part?
I kind of did. It's when his bike was stolen.
Okay.
After the bike is stolen, it's like it actually becomes a Tim Burton movie. The tone changes and it starts getting wackier and you start seeing nuances to a character like okay, the first one of my favorite moments and one of the first real laughs I got was when he's talking to the girl that likes him, Dottie at the bike shop, who we found out was that voice actor. She voiced a lot of things. Recognized her voice. I was like,
you recognized her voice.
I was like, I know her from something.
She does Tommy Pickles and the Rugrats. What was the other thing? Oh, one of the Powerpuff Girls, Buttercup.
Buttercup, yes, Buttercup.
She's done a bunch of other voices.
But so I thought she was cool, and she's just like trying to go out with him, and he's like oblivious, or maybe he's not oblivious because like there's many things about me you don't like.
That's the
and then
part.
He automatically changes voice, goes out of character. There's many things about me you don't get. I'm like, then it made me think, what? So this is him putting on an act, and I was just like, wait, what? And I got intrigued by like,
you liked that line. There's many things about me you shouldn't know about.
Like, wait, what are we saying? Is he hiding something? Is this all an act? But there's other characters like Frances who kind of act like this. But then I realized she doesn't act like that. A lot of the other people don't act like overgrown children. So I was like, wait, this isn't imaginary. This is his thing. Is this kind of meta within the world of the movie? Is there something going on with him? Why is he doing it? And it just got me thinking, this is a very interesting thing going on here. And I didn't completely get it, but I'm like, okay, that was kind of smart. That was kind of funny. And then as it continuously went on, we got to see a lot more Burtonisms, but we also got to see the character. All right, and I don't want to get too much into
the character develops in this movie.
I don't want to we'll get into the Burton stuff because that's what I really want to talk about.
Well, right, that's all you want to talk about.
But because
classic Burton.
Because
but it's an important factor in this movie.
It's a Burton movie.
Yes,
and we'll get into that. But talking about the character, I wasn't sold on him initially because of that. I don't know why it didn't work for me itself.
Okay.
Maybe because of no nostalgia or whatever. But him going on the
But keep
trip.
in mind, when this movie came out, Pee-wee's Playhouse didn't exist.
It did.
So this was many people's introduction to the character.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Pee-wee's Playhouse debuted a year after this movie came out.
Gotcha.
Probably because of the success of the movie.
Okay. Well, it's going on the road trip, interacting with all the different characters, and he's kind of got like this almost naive element to him, but everybody seems to be drawn to him, even people that don't like him initially, many of them do.
Right, like for example, the motorcycle bar.
They almost murder him.
They almost straight up murder him, talk about killing him, hanging him by his
it's
toes,
such
whatever.
gruesome detail.
And then he goes up and does the classic dance that we've all seen, which I didn't know initiated here. I thought maybe it was in one of his episodes or something that I missed. But yeah, the tequila, you know, the whole dance he does. So that turns everybody around at the bar. They're like, oh my God, you're great now.
Gang.
They give him a jacket and everything.
And that's the whole movie. Is literally, there's something about that classic like folk hero thing. He goes around traveling, learning about the people, America, and gives them advice.
He talks to a ghost.
He talks to a ghost.
Large
he talks
Marge.
to a ghost. You found out they reveal she's a ghost. Like, and
that was wild.
He's kind of going on this adventure, and he sort of makes other people better. And also,
he certainly makes people happy.
He does, but he also kind of learns something from his experiences, because he starts off thinking he doesn't want to have anything to do with anybody, doesn't need anybody. Right. But through his interactions, he meets other people, connects, and gets help.
And I think that the crux of that comes in the last scene, when this is after he finds the bike. He steals it from the Warner Brothers lot.
We're going to talk about this all over the place.
Of course, they have the whole farce there where he steals the bike, but. They have the movie at the end at the drive-in, and he,
loved it.
Instead of watching his own movie, is going around giving candy and popcorn to all of his friends. So we see, obviously, everybody come back. We kind of knew that was going to happen.
And all the people come at the end that met him, and I love that.
Yeah.
That's a classic thing, and it's very feel-good.
Right.
And he brings people together.
He's a giving
person. And he starts off the movie not really being like that. He's a bit more...
okay, but you know what? He warns his neighbor that he's about to do the water spray, so his neighbor can close the window. So even in short order, we see that he cares about other people.
All right. I guess he is a little more driven, I guess, himself. Okay, you're right. The main message is he says he learns humility.
Yes.
That's the big thing.
Right.
He's always has a big heart, but he kind of thinks he doesn't need help. And that's kind of the main thing.
I'm a loner, Dottie, a rebel,
to put this on.
And yet the whole movie it's nothing help. But him being helped by people,
which is great,
which he realizes.
And you know what? And I love. All right, man. I was gonna pick one favorite interaction, but as I'm realizing, there's so many. All right, first of all, Large Marge. That whole twist was fantastic.
That whole twist was really good.
That whole sequence was great.
Yep.
Also, probably my favorite character interaction. Well, there's so many, but
I'll tell you mine.
Can you guess who it is?
Well,
it'll be okay if you guess wrong, because I like most of them.
My guess would be probably the guy that picks him up that just busted out of jail.
Yes, the prisoner.
Because I think that's mine.
I love that. Their whole dynamic was great.
When they threw the cops off the trail, Pee Wee Herman did the woman bit and pretended like he was the wife of the guy.
That was great.
Like, that was my favorite interaction.
But I'll be honest, it's like little bits that kept happening that made me like the character more, even though I was admittedly not wanting to.
How about the train when the guy out Pee Wee?
Oh,
they kept
the
singing
homeless
songs.
guy, he keeps singing, and Pee was like, "I'm done. This guy's annoying me."
Even Pee Wee had to go.
That was a great gag.
That was good.
So there's smart stuff, but like the moment where he sees that, okay, he jumps in the car, assuming he's just a nice guy, and then he sees, okay, he's a prisoner on the run. What did he do? He doesn't judge him. He tries to relate to him, and he's like, and he kind of sort of does, but then he emulates him, and then sees maybe that's not necessarily the best way to be. Right. By kind of backfiring with that. So there was some really interesting things.
Well, he does wreck his car. I mean, oh no, he didn't wreck it because of the parachute.
The parachute, the top coming down,
the convertible. Yeah,
that was great. It looks down. Ah!
But yeah, I mean, you're right. Now, obviously, the guy didn't murder somebody. He just ripped a tag off a mattress.
No, but he didn't assume.
Pee Wee didn't assume that just because he had handcuffs that he was a horrible person.
And that was a good little character thing. And, and that's the thing. He sort of gives people the benefit of a doubt. He's sort of innocent, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So there's that, and also, The thing that really sold it for me, though, about how good he is when he's on the run after he gets the bike and stops to save all those animals. All those animals.
Yeah, towards the end of the movie, when the pet store's on fire, he finally gets his bike back. The whole reason for the movie is for him to get his bike, and then he sees the pet store on fire, and he's like, "Oh, forget this bike! Like, I got to save all these animals."
And
even the snakes.
Even the snakes. Every
was a
time
great
he's
gag.
looking at him, like, I don't want to deal with you, and he's like, and
But at the end of the day, and you kept saying, he's going to save.
He's going to save those snakes,
Yeah.
and that is such a talk about like a good person, likable character you can get behind. Like, man, like I started off like just consciously thinking I'm going to hate him. I don't want to like this character because he seems annoying. I really like him. By the end of the movie, I really do like him.
Good.
And that's an important thing for the character. He's so likable. But
Yes, you
interacting
need to
with
like him.
other people though, and how he like changes them.
Yeah.
How they change him. I love the interaction. It's so good. The acting's on point with people. The writing.
Okay. Is
the visual gags
it's
like
complete off topic, but it's awesome.
That's why it's long.
Is there a movie? I know. Is there a movie where a comedy movie, maybe specifically, where the main character is not very likable?
Probably. There are some comedies where they're kind of jerks.
I certainly know some people on one of the movie fan groups I follow on Facebook.
Okay.
There's a big contingent of people on there that really hate the character Ferris Bueller. They think he's a real jerk, and in some instances, he probably is.
Well,
but I never saw him that way. You know, even as I've gotten older, and I should maybe sympathize more with his parents or the principal or whoever.
Yeah.
I still don't think Ferris is a jerk. I think he's
a kid.
A kid.
He doesn't think about his
and he's a popular kid, so that's gone to his head. But I never really got that sense.
Well,
but
there's
there could be a case
like with Cameron, he kind of like gets him in trouble, but that sort of liberates him from his dad. So I mean, that's one of those things.
There's
we look
cases
back
to be
in
made.
time nostalgically. Okay, as an adult,
Right.
okay, maybe he's not that great, but within the context of the movie, I think he's pretty likable.
I think he's likable.
He's a little iffy maybe, but pretty likable.
Yeah.
But then there are some characters that are, I think, jerks that we follow. I think Jason Bateman plays some people you could argue may not be likable. I mean, I usually like them,
that's
but
probably true.
He's kind of like an
he's funny, but he's maybe not
jerky
the best.
characters like that.
Okay.
That maybe not. I'll be honest. I didn't know if it would be a good comparison, but when I thought of Pee-wee's, and you're talking about the adventure, something very similar for me, Beavis and Butthead Do America.
Okay.
And you can make the argument.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
Yeah, that's true.
They're
actually.
dumb instead of being naive, but it's
Yeah,
similar.
I kind of think of that as like Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
Like
because
Dumb and Dumber, they're not jerks. They're just stupid. They're dumb and dumber.
But he's not really. Pee-wee's not really dumb. He's just
he's naive. Yeah, he's naive.
But that works and that helps people.
Yeah.
That simplicity, which is kind of a beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah.
So I
certainly got you on board.
It did, and I
You
mean,
know?
like the combination of that with just how funny a lot of the stuff was and fast paced.
And we
don't know.
And we don't really explore
his
character and his backstory too much in the Playhouse because it's once you cut out commercials, the Penny cartoon, the King of Cartoons show, and the old thing from the 20s, like. There was only probably about 11 or 12 minutes each episode where you actually see Pee-wee doing things. So it was all more like, it's almost like Mr. Rogers, where it's like, you take out Make-Believe Land, you take out this, you take out the mailman coming over.
Actually with
we don't know really much about Mr. Rogers as a person. He's just a nice dude.
He's there hosting the show.
And so Pee-wee, right, exactly. So Pee-wee's like talking to furniture, he's talking to his food, he's
like
talking,
a kid would.
talking to Miss Yvonne, whatever, like a kid would. But we don't actually get beyond that.
Right.
And in these two movies, we do.
This is going to be a long video. And I wanted to ask you this. Because
see, the camera would already be out of juice by this point. We haven't even touched on the second movie.
Okay, this is the thing.
Okay.
So we talked about, that's the part of it that I like within the movie.
Right.
But also, I want to ask you, what about the fact that it does seem like he and some people are putting on an act sometime because Francis, at the end of the movie, drops it. He's talking like a normal adult. So you can tell, like, it's almost like they're both rich kids, and like, so is he putting on an act? Because he clearly can change his character and be totally different, and that's the part. Was it meta?
No. And here's
what is that?
No,
what is going on?
He can't.
What is that?
This is him. This is not the character. I mean, I'm talking about Pee-wee. Obviously, Paul Rubens is a different person, but I mean, the character. Okay. The character has no act. The character is the character, and here's what proves that.
Okay.
The movie within the movie. Where they have to dub over his voice.
It's not actually him.
Because he talks in his Pee-wee voice.
So good.
Funny gag.
So good.
And, he's trying to, like, mug for the camera while Morgan Fairchild and James Brolin are talking. So that's how you know that it's not an act. Whatever Francis' deal is, I can't tell you because this is the only time I've ever seen him. I don't know this Francis from anybody else.
It's interesting, though.
But I would say that there is no act here for Pee-wee, and that's proven by the movie within a movie.
So you're saying just that scene with Dottie, it's just him kind of emulating something he saw or how a masculine guy would be.
That's you mean at the end?
No, at the beginning. Remember when it says, there's things about me? That's the part that threw me off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Just to get you thinking.
But I think of him as, like we've said, a man-child. So, like, yeah, he's, let's say a 10-year-old or whatever.
Yeah, a grown
12-year-old in a grown man's body, whatever. So,
that's the thing.
And you even pointed out during the movie, you're like, oh, I wonder if it's like a thing where it's like, he thinks she has cooties, and that kind of thing.
Well, it seems true, yeah.
And so, I think, look, everybody has their secrets. 10-year-old boys have their little secrets.
And he's just talking like an adult would.
And so he's just trying to, emulate what he's seen in movies or whatever. And that's what I got from it.
For the most part, I think you're right. Except for when we get into all the meta Burton stuff and about filmmaking and whatnot, I think you could make a case maybe that was a nod to something else. Maybe.
In his personality?
Maybe.
Okay.
Just like that one little bit. I thought that was pretty fun.
Let's get into the Burton of the movie.
All right. Well, first of all, Dan,
it's a Burton movie.
Whenever I think of a Burton movie, I always kind of dismiss this one like, okay, this is the one he did to get started. It's not really a Burton movie. He throws so much of his stuff.
It's all Burton.
This could be like a map for his entire career.
Right.
And it's weird.
And we noticed so many Easter eggs.
For future things.
That
he couldn't have possibly known he was going to do.
Right. That there could be no way of knowing. Right?
No.
And in fact, it's in the first movie, right? With the woman that ends up, or is it a Big Top Pee-wee, that ends up being in Batman Returns with him.
Yeah.
That's in the first movie, right?
That's the Penguin's parents. The woman he meets to go to France.
The woman that wants to go to France that he talks to when he's in Texas.
And her giant boyfriend thinks that he's making out.
So right from the start, I was like, I recognize her. Let's look her up. And then Batman Returns was in the credits, and then I was like, or you pointed out, like Paul Rubens was in Batman Returns.
She's got the big cigarette. She's like,
so Burton brought them back to be husband and wife. There is a constant circus theme. Now, Burton didn't direct Big Top Pee-wee, but there are circus elements in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, too. The clowns, specific, right in the beginning where he ties his bike up
some of the music
to a big clown. So we see that. We see, you mentioned in Big Fish, where at the end of Big Fish, everybody that he's met along the way gathers. I noticed the set from Big Fish.
You did, where they filmed
where they come out of, he comes out of the woods, Ewan McGregor's character in Big Fish, and there's that like little town. That exact town is in this movie.
That's really cool. He came back and used it again.
So this really set the stage. And look, we're both Burton fans.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked many times on your channel about Burton. We've certainly reviewed, Miss Peregrine, and we've reviewed some older movies too, but some of the more recent ones as well.
Yeah.
But one of my all-time favorite movies, probably still to this day, is Big Fish. I think that is just a wonderful movie from start to finish. When I was growing up, Edward Scissorhands was near and dear to me, and Beetlejuice is one of my all-time favorites. Mm-hmm. That's a perennial for me, and we see so much of all of these movies and then some. Even Ed Wood, you mentioned, with the classic Hollywood type themes.
Oh yeah, with the Godzilla movies and the cheap sets and everything.
Right.
Oh man,
that goes to Ed Wood.
Clearly a love for that. Yeah.
I mean, Burton and Frankenweenie, you said too,
with
because of the animals,
the dogs. Yeah, I was just like, oh.
So this is something obviously that Burton still goes back to.
As like kind of because he experimented with different things he would blow up on, and obviously some of
there are a couple of the like animated sequences.
The stop motion dinosaur.
When Large Marge turns to him into the creature. That's straight out of Beetlejuice.
And
that is straight
the
Beetlejuice.
set with like the hallway with the weird winding road and the angles.
That was Beetlejuice as well.
That's the swirly lines, the black and white with the really interesting lighting with the constant heavy reds and shadow. Like, and it's weird how in the beginning it feels like it's kind of just sporadic and not really a Burton movie. But the further he gets on his quest, we see a little more of Burton just going to these different worlds and the dream sequences.
And I don't know what that is. I don't know if they shot this in some semblance of order so that the first 15 minutes really isn't that Burton-y from what we know.
And then we were like, it seemed like a different movie at the beginning, remember?
Yes, but you pointed out, so does Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Before they die, like 10 minutes in, it's a very nice, husband and wife. They're making these models. They're going into town, to get stuff. They're talking about, their future together, whatever. And then they die, and it becomes Burton City.
Yes.
But before that, it really is very nice and, for lack of a better term, normal.
It's not very stylized.
And it's not very stylized.
It's that quirky, dark, weird.
And the Elfman music helps, certainly.
Yes.
It always does.
It's not like the typical stuff, though. There's just little bits of it here and there. Which is nice, but we could tell it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right from the first song, I looked at you and I said, Elfman had to do this music, so I looked it up.
But
and the Oz references.
Oh yeah,
My favorite movie of all time is Wizard of Oz, and there's several Oz references right in this movie. I think the most obvious is probably the actual lifting of the at the end. But then even like things like Toto coming out of the basket, like they have that in here.
And I don't know. I think that's actually kind of leads to another point. With all the Wizard of Oz references and the music and some of the visuals, some of the story beats, and honestly, kind of culminate. Honestly, like what really sold this theory for me. I hinted I had a theory about this movie.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Maybe because he was an early director experimenting. This is his first big feature. Maybe he thought this would be the only big movie he'd ever get to do.
So he wanted to throw it all in.
Because it's like the whole movie seems to be like a tribute to cinema and movie making. Little bits because and I'm saying when they go to the Warner Brothers studio and he can literally play around and
with
have
every
Pee-wee
type
go
of movie.
And
that's
true. And I mean how it all builds like when he crashes into the Godzilla set,
right?
And then Godzilla gets dragged along with Santa, and then they
the Twisted Sister music
video, and then into Tarzan. And I'm just like, so clearly there's homage to...
Even at the end, with the movie within a movie, he's doing a romantic drama with some action in
which
there.
Which is more straight, and he's James Bond elements, and he's obviously like making fun of the biographical nature of the movie within the movie that's nothing like it, which influences things like Austin Powers.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and I think that's so clever, and literally the bad dubbing and him like messing up, like
it's so good.
Homage to like B movies, like the Ed Wood stuff. I'm like, that's just great. The whole thing is just a love for movies that's just all over the place.
Yeah, this is Burton.
So
maybe you're right.
I'm just thinking, think about it. First movie, maybe it could bomb. He doesn't know what. I just want to like play around.
Yeah, and like I said, it was not an established character yet.
No.
People didn't really know Pee-wee.
Nobody. Tim Burton's a nobody really right now. Right. So it could have failed. He said, you know what? I'm just going to put a little bit of my love for all the stuff I grew up with, different movies, and there it is. Playing around Warner Brothers, it's right there.
Good, by the way, on Warner Brothers.
That's so
for letting them make the movie that they wanted to make, because this movie is 100% Pee-wee and it's 100% Tim Burton. Like you can tell that they didn't sacrifice any of
creative freedom.
Yeah, like you'd never get that today with a brand new director and an untested property.
Yeah, something like this would never come out.
Never fly.
To be honest, I am happy. Obviously, but honestly really surprised because thinking about it, Tim Burton, for a successful like mainstream filmmaker, is pretty weird.
Yeah,
like this movie's bizarre.
Yeah,
in a lot of play, like it's scary. It's like
off-putting. Think about all the
picked up.
Think about all the directors that you love. I mean, their first full-length feature was not a major summer tentpole movie from a major studio.
Like this.
I mean, Kevin Smith did Clerks. Tarantino did Reservoir Dogs. I mean, like
relatively low risk, more focused story.
Right. This is first-time director Tim Burton. First, Paul Rubens had never been in a major motion picture, at least not starred in one. And this character was
so
brand
wacky,
new and untested.
So I think for a first
kudos
time
to
director,
Warner Brothers for that.
big risk.
Yeah.
It's cool though. It's really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, I really liked Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Now, because you liked it, we said let's take the other 90 minutes and watch Big Top Pee-wee.
Which
Now,
may have been a mistake.
this is notoriously known as a horrible movie.
I didn't know that. I had never heard of it until you told me
Well, I
about
told
it.
you about it.
You
And so at the beginning of the movie, I even looked at the Rotten score and I was
I don't
like,
know
let's
these.
just see what
tell
the
me.
difference is.
Now you can tell me.
Big Adventure, 87%.
Sounds about right.
Big Top, 37%.
That sounds about right.
With a 35 audience score.
Oh, pretty even. Okay.
Pretty even. And by the way, hold on. Before we get to Big Top Pee-wee, speaking of the critics, I told you Siskel and Ebert
Tell me.
had a very, very differing opinion on Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Now,
Okay.
you hypothesized that Siskel was into it, Ebert was not, because Ebert is
More
sometimes harder on family films,
Usually.
kids' movies,
especially earlier.
early on.
Not the case?
Exact opposite.
Huh.
Siskel hated it so much it was among his worst of the year. He said it was horrible.
Huh.
And Ebert really, really liked it. But I'll tell you why I think that is.
Okay.
Because it isn't a typical kids movie.
No, it's smarter than a
Ebert
typical-
doesn't really like the pandering type movies.
This was a lot, and he loves the film history stuff
Right.
and the smart things.
My guess is he could see that Burton was doing something special and unique here. And I don't know why Siskel wasn't on board, but he wasn't.
Siskel might not have gotten it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, hey,
So that's how that happened.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I usually agree with Siskel. Siskel seems to be easy on most things.
Siskel is the Joe. I think he's a little
Tries to be
easier.
open-minded, like,
A little
I see what they're
open-minded,
trying to do.
Tries to see what the audience is going for, even if
Ebert's
it's
like,
not
oh,
for
this is a
him.
terrible movie.
Ebert's like, what are you talking about? Whatever. You respect Ebert more, but I think you have always agreed more with Siskel.
If
So-
it were me on the show, I would probably be the Siskel, and I think
Oh,
I relate
yeah.
to him. But I have read a lot of Ebert, and I do respect his opinions,
Yes.
even though I do not always agree.
Correct.
Yes.
Now, I didn't look up their thing for this, but
They probably both hated
I'm
it.
sure it was panned by everyone. So okay.
Oh,
A
Big
few things
Top.
about Big Top Pee-wee. Now, first of all, like I said, Burton opted out. He said, you know what, goodbye. I'm
Beetlejuice.
going to do Beetlejuice.
Smart move.
Whatever.
Smart.
So, interestingly enough, this wasn't even a Warner Brothers movie.
Okay, so
Paramount. We remember the Paramount logo at the top. We were talking about how great Paramount movies are.
Star Trek.
Star Trek, Mission Impossible were mentioned.
Yes.
Now, Danny Elfman did do the score.
Cool.
However, because it's a different studio, he wasn't allowed to recreate anything that he did for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So that's why the feel of the music is not very Burton-y,
Aha.
because he was doing completely new things with it.
Think about it. He doesn't have any images or storyboards or whatever that
Right.
Burton probably would have made because he's an artist to
Right.
go with the music or however they do it.
Yeah.
So that I have a feeling they work a lot to.
Well,
match.
and the thing is, look, Danny Elfman doesn't only do Burton movies.
No.
He's branched out and done other things.
Oh, yeah,
He's
yeah.
done music for The Simpsons, and he had a new wave band in the 80s called Oingo Boingo. So this was not Burton-y at all
No.
in this score, and that does help set the tone of the movie.
It
So
does.
here in Big Top Pee-wee, it is a completely unrelated story to anything. It's unrelated to the Playhouse. It's unrelated to Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It's unrelated to the stage show.
I liked our comparison though. It's kind of like putting a different character into a scenario like Looney Tunes or Abbott and
Yes,
Costello.
it's
Three Stooges.
Three Stooges, right? It's along those lines, because what the basic premise is in the 1940s he's a farmhand. So Pee-wee's Big Adventure
80s.
is 80s, and we couldn't figure out quite exactly.
I thought it was like 50s or 60s.
I thought it could have been 50s or 60s, but then you pointed out the Twisted Sister video, and I was like, okay, obviously it's in the 80s.
Yeah.
But this takes place in the late 40s-ish, and he is a farmer. He still lives on his own, like in every other iteration of the character, but here he lives
on a
with
farm.
these animals.
So can definitely talk
Some of
to
them talk.
One of his powers among super strength and everything else.
Yes, although he can talk to them in Big Adventure, it seems, but we don't.
We don't hear them talk back.
We hear the one pig in this, which we'll get into. But, I hated it. And so a big her hurricane hits or tornado or whatever, which is like
straight up
beat for beat Wizard of Oz, down to like him trying to get into the storm cellar.
That was pretty good.
And
visually,
then the circus rolls into town literally from the hurricane.
Chris Christopherson.
And Chris Christopherson is the head of it. And so Pee-wee is engaged to this gal played by Penelope Ann Miller, and ends up falling for one of the gals in the circus played by Valeria Golino, who was big at this time with Rain Man and Hot Shots. And I think The Color of Money maybe too, the Tom Cruise movie. But this came out 3 years after Big Adventure, 2 years after Pee-wee's Playhouse debuted. So Pee-wee was a hot commodity at this point.
Definitely.
Saturday mornings were big. So they threw a big budget into this movie.
Did they?
$20 million. It returned $15 million. Whereas Pee-wee's Big Adventure, less than $10 million investment, made $40. So
they put more money into this?
Yeah. Lots.
Huh. That
interesting, right?
That doesn't. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Well, part of that you got to figure is his salary.
Okay.
He's a big name now.
Chris
Christopherson probably had a little bit of a price tag.
Some costumes and sets and visuals and
all the animal training.
Oh, that's true.
All the animal training.
There are a lot of that's a cool thing.
There's a lot more, I think, stunt people in this because of the acrobatics and that kind of thing.
You're right. Okay. You're right.
So
you're right.
It's
just the visual style and the editing and lighting was all so much more interesting in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which makes sense. Smaller budget, more creative. It's Tim Burton, so that makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense. But this one feels more. It's not like badly shot, I guess.
But at this point, he's a superstar. Pee-wee Herman is a superstar.
Yeah.
So
he's the main draw.
Didn't make his PSA for crack yet. Which I
had to point out.
I never heard of that, but I watched it.
I don't get that.
It's weird. I don't know why. Maybe I blocked it out.
I missed Pee-wee's Playhouse. He missed the crack.
I missed the crack PSA. Sorry. Very, very serious Pee-wee telling us not to smoke crack.
I'm telling you.
Well, I didn't smoke it, so whether I saw it or not, he got to me. We also have, by the way, little Benicio Del Toro in this movie.
As the dog face man.
As a dog face
boy. Who is good in his little role.
He is good, actually. And you can tell it's him, too. He's even at 19 or 20 hour old. It's the complete Benicio Del Toro face.
Good makeup on him.
Sicario, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Not the second one, which sucks.
That's
Remember?
right.
They're going to make a third one where he gets revenge.
That second one's... Okay.
Bad.
Anyway, the second Sicario movie is bad. As an aside.
But
this movie's also bad, so it's
Spoilers.
A bit related.
We didn't get there.
All right, well, we've already said how bad it is. And how it was a mistake to watch.
Haven't even broken it down, really.
But, okay, so let's break it down. First of all, the talking pig sucks. I hate that. I generally don't like...
the talking animal.
Talking animals that we can hear. Now, if Pee-wee can hear them, fine.
I liked that.
I liked it in Big Adventure. They're the only real exceptions to the animals can talk.
Okay.
And look, I don't mind if they can talk to each other. That's fine. But anytime they talk to a person...
It's the mouth thing, right?
I hate the mouth thing. Hate the moving of the mouth. Here, I hated the moving of the mouth.
And the voice.
The
character.
And the character, because he
never added anything to the story.
He didn't have any funny lines.
He just would say what we observed.
Right, and it wasn't even like they were trying and it wasn't funny. It just, the lines were not jokes. It would be like...
a pig's talking.
A pig is talking is, I guess, the joke. It would be like...
Which is weird. We were like,
what? Right, like Pee-wee would do something. We as the audience would see it.
Oh, keep running, Pee-wee.
Right, and then the pig would be like... All right, and it's like, well, that's added absolutely nothing. Like, what do you mean? So I hated that. But look, the biggest problem with this movie
was an interesting one.
It's
a character one.
It made Pee-wee incredibly unlikable.
Actually, it made him a jerk.
He starts making out with the gal from the circus.
Which I didn't get. I liked his girlfriend, his fiancée. I did. I know the egg salad bit you got on board with.
I didn't really think they were a good match because she clearly didn't know him.
But he didn't go about it the right way at all.
Made him look like a jerk. He starts, kissing her. And
how do you feel about that guy?
The fiancé comes in. I'll get to it.
Okay.
The fiancé comes in and sees it and gets obviously all pissed, and then the girl from the circus gets pissed too because she's like, "Oh my God, you have a fiancé!" Slaps him real hard. That was a funny one where you had the handprint.
But what about
when they were kissing for like 2 minutes, they did the panning out, and then they were like, "Oh, let's pan back in."
Stop
They're still kissing. I didn't
Did it go on
like
too
it.
long?
Well, here's
that could
the
work in other things.
It could work on other things, but here's my main issue with it. It is not really in Pee-wee's nature to be sexualized at all. Now, in Pee-wee's Playhouse, we had Miss Yvonne, who was known as the prettiest girl in all of Playland or whatever it was called. But that's as far as it got. She was a pretty girl, but it's not like Pee-wee ever tried to get with her. He never tried to express, that he was...
That was one of the charms, I think, in the first movie. Is
right.
all those women
Dottie
were into
was like
him.
trying to get with him,
The
and he was
biker
like,
lady.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They all really were into him, and he didn't quite get it. It didn't,
right.
That was what was funny about it.
Yeah.
But charming.
Right.
He was a kid, basically,
right.
a big kid. So it's like that was funny about
yes. And
this one, it's like
here. Not only that, but he straight up has sex with her.
Yeah, with the train thing. Which
in this PG movie.
Which, by the way, I like when they do that, but like the train in the tunnel was enough. We didn't need all the fireworks.
Well, they always have to do it. They always have to do like 5 things to get the point across.
I think one would have been fine.
And do the gag. But I really did not like that they turned Pee-wee into a sexual character.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
At all.
Actually. Because then it's like he is a kid. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
And that's... Look,
it's a little weird.
I think that's in part why the thing that happened in 1991 when he got caught masturbating was like...
Oh.
Because nobody was thinking of Pee-wee as a sexual being at all.
Yeah.
And...
that's a little weird.
So it's like, it's just not... It's not in the wheelhouse. So I hated that part.
Cool.
I didn't like hated the talking pig.
I got another problem if you don't mention it.
Okay.
Well, tell me if you agree with this. I think one of the great things that I mentioned about Pee-wee's Big Adventure is it's a Pee-wee movie about Pee-wee and interacting with different characters.
Yes.
This movie is like a Pee-wee movie maybe half the time.
I mean, a little more than half,
60%.
But it's a lot of circus people. It's a lot of character development for the circus people.
I like
part of backstory for the circus people.
Likes the circus. But sometimes it takes away a bit from the focus, and then Pee-wee's romance stuff isn't that interesting.
No.
Or we don't really like it, so it's just...
I wonder how much of that was the Chris Christopherson...
His character
takes contract. Was like, if I'm going to be in this movie, I need to be in X many minutes or whatever.
And when he starts giving Pee-wee advice, and I just started spacing out. Like,
we had a lot of conversations during this movie that weren't about the movie.
And then he's giving like this serious speech, and you were like, I don't know about this movie.
I know, I wasn't.
It was weird. Like,
yeah, it is weird
because it wasn't weird. It was just a circus movie that had Pee-wee in it, and then it just kind of ends. You know how like the first one has like this really big like culmination with the movie theater, which is it's really great, brings everything together.
They did this Greatest Showman bit where they brought out all the people and he literally started singing like Hugh Jackman in Greatest Showman.
He did the dance again.
Yes, he did. Pee-wee on the tightrope did the dance, which I did enjoy.
Yeah.
And look, I don't mind if they're going to do the Looney Tunes Abbott and Costello thing where every movie
Pee-wee does this.
Pee-wee does something else. Because look, in the Playhouse, there were times when he was like, because it was like Mr. Rogers, where it was like, and it was all like play pretend. It's not like he was actually a farmer, but he would be like, oh, let's do this today, and then they would do that, and it was sort of, in character, but he was always doing something different.
Sure.
Which I guess you could apply to the Three Stooges, because really they just kept getting different jobs every episode because they kept getting fired.
Different situations.
But different situations. Here, making it, I think, completely out of context with the character, the world that they've created by this point for the character, and setting it 40 years in the past
that was weird.
Is just weird.
Because you could have built off the first movie's universe easily.
Yes.
I kind of...
Yeah, it was very weird that it had nothing to do with any of the other things that came before it.
The only thing I can say is that up until the sexual stuff, I mean, he was still basically the same character, had some good gags for the most part. There were some good moments.
Some of the parts up front were not bad, like with him and the animals.
Like if this was not a Big Top Pee-wee, if it was Pee-wee's farm, he has to work on the farm.
Yeah, you'd like that idea.
Struggled with it,
right?
And then him experimenting with different fruits and stuff. That stuff was cool.
He had a hot dog tree, so we could have different plants and trees that
was
were
interesting.
growing.
I kind of liked that. That was that concept. I thought you could have had fun with. You didn't need the circus.
You didn't
thing.
even need the circus. You're right.
That was enough on its own.
I'm not sure what the logic was there.
Francis could come back, try to take his farm. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
know
they could've
why. I understand they're two different. One's Warner Brothers, one's Paramount. So maybe they couldn't have the exact same characters bring it back.
But even that,
even some sort of nod to Pee-wee's Playhouse. Have Missy Vaughn come in, or have somebody
cameo or something.
Yes, anything, and we didn't get that.
That would to promote the show. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean,
it's
you mentioned you wanted to talk way more about Big Adventure. Is there anything else to say about Big Top Pee-wee that we really haven't before we get to the grades? It's certainly a far inferior movie. I can see why it was not a success.
I did like some. I liked a lot of the circus characters. I just think there was too much focus.
But there was too much of the backstory.
Too much on
It's a
them.
Pee-wee movie.
Pete takes away from Pee-wee. I mean,
that pig was annoying though.
Pig. I don't know why they needed to talk.
Some of the characters were good though. The elephant.
The elephant. I like the elephant.
Some of the horses when they were making the pancakes.
The gag where he gets crushed almost by the elephant. That was funny.
Yeah.
I liked some of the stuff where he goes flying.
The kissing though.
No.
No, I don't like a sexualized Pee-wee. I really don't.
Yeah, and he was kind of a jerk.
He was a real jerk
to his fiance.
So
they didn't make him very likable. Actually.
No.
Trying to get that action. He was a little. Yeah.
And now we've answered our question. What's a movie where the lead character is unlikable? No. Listen, he redeems himself by the end.
He does learn his lesson.
And that's all that matters in these types of movies. You have to have some sort of jerkiness, I think, to a lot of your lead comedy characters. But hopefully they learn some kind of a lesson.
But he was a little jerky in the first one, but not really. He was mostly just nice.
No, he's mostly nice, and everyone was drawn to him.
Yeah, and if he was jerky, it's because he didn't know anything.
Bad Teacher's kind of bad. That movie with Cameron Diaz, but that's her point. You go into it knowing she's a bad person.
That's
the gag.
That's the title.
So I noticed. Oh, that's PG like Pee-wee, I say.
All right, so
these are both PG. Yeah, I did think it was interesting that Pee-wee's Big Adventure was PG because they talk about murdering a lot.
The 80's, man.
Like the 80's, they didn't care. I guess this was only a year after PG-13 existed.
It's some scary stuff for kids, I think.
A little bit. But this Big Top Pee-wee opposite. There was nothing
other than the sex.
But kids won't get that.
So
train through the thing.
Big Top Pee-wee's a G80s.
Basically, yeah. All right. What else? Anything else before we do the grades?
I honestly like the cover of the first one more than the second one, a lot more. And even with the stripes, it's burnt.
Even the face that he's making.
What face is he making?
He's making this nice.
It's a good face.
His laugh face. Ha ha. I can't do his
he's
impression.
Smushed.
But here he's he's got his tongue wagging out.
I don't know. Trying to get some.
I like this picture on the back though. It's pretty good.
Yeah, with the top hat. Yeah.
Hey, we'll say this about the iPhone 4K. I can. There's definitely more clarity with the items I'm showing off.
Oh yeah, man.
Anyway, all right. So let's grade these things. I can go first with both movies if you want to give you a starting point.
Sure, because all right, go ahead, help me out.
I think Pee-wee's Big Adventure is a classic. I can see why it's achieved this cult status. I can see why it is revered by many, many people. Right? Yeah. I actually, and look, Burton, first movie, knocking it out of the park. I'm giving Big Adventure an A.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Big Top Pee-wee, much lower. There's not too many movies that are a sequel, although thematically it's not a sequel.
It's basically
but technically it's a sequel, I guess.
It's a spin-off.
Spin-off, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Very few spin-offs with a character I like. I give such a different grade. But I would say Big Top Pee-wee is probably a C-. I mean, there's not that much good about it. In terms of humor, I would rather watch 3 episodes of Pee-wee's Playhouse any day of the week.
Well, all right. Man, I was going into it thinking I wasn't going to like Pee-wee's Big Adventure that much. I still think the character by himself, that beginning, didn't really sell me, but
Okay.
but it grows so much, and you like him so much, and there's so much going on in this movie that works so well, and it's when my thing is when I compare it to like so many other Burton movies, there are ones that I think are better movies and pure Burton movies.
Of course.
You know, like I'm thinking about Batman, I'm thinking about Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, and I'm like, I like most of those movies
I've
better.
given many Burton movies A's.
But I like more those more.
Okay.
But this movie has surprised me.
But this is a completely different movie. Those movies are all PG-13,
That's
more adult.
I know
movies.
it's more his stuff, and this is him getting started with something that's not his, and it still works really well. I had a great time watching, and it's smart.
Yeah,
it's well done. It's well crafted.
Large mark.
I can't think of a reason to give it an A-. It's probably
It's
an
an
A
A.
for me because other than like that beginning
Yep.
part with the character,
Yep.
it really worked well. I really like Pee-wee a lot.
Yeah.
Actually.
Okay.
Big
Now, how about Big Top?
Pee-wee.
Is it as low as my C minus?
I don't know. Like, I think maybe we're a little hard on Big Top Pee-wee. Like,
Maybe.
I agree it has some issues. It's not as good as the first movie.
Wow.
But
I don't even think it's in the same
it's not.
league
It's
as the first one.
I think but Pee-wee's character for the most part, how he's handled his portrayal is pretty much the same. I think if he was
Except for the part where he's a jerk.
except for the part where he's a jerk and
I mean, he is kind of a jerk a little bit in that first one when he has the meeting with the bike and he yells at everybody.
But that was like he's
That
having
was
a
because he was
tantrum.
he was
Yeah.
frustrated about the bike.
The Big Top though, I feel like he has a lot of gags that I feel with a better director, better script, he could have had much more laughs.
I would agree.
The good visuals. There was still a lot of Pee-wee. Like I feel like a lot of Pee-wee was there, not all of it.
Yeah,
but I feel
not
like,
enough.
But I'm beginning to think that maybe Pee-wee and Tim Burton are like the Pee-wee and
That's
Jay.
the team.
The Pee-wee and
Batman
Burton.
Returns.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know how much that's a fact. He was great in Batman Returns
He
for
really
his one
was, for his
scene.
one line.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he was good.
And you never knew, by the way. You'd seen Batman Returns like 20 times.
That was my kid's movie.
And then
of
when
course.
I first saw it, I immediately was like, "Oh my god, that's Pee-wee Herman!"
And it blew your mind.
You were like, "What?"
I was like, wait, Pee-wee Herman. He did Pee-wee.
That guy on the bike.
I was like, what? Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know why they put him in there. That's random. It's
Yeah.
not that random.
And now we know.
Because he helped Burton get started.
Yeah.
So it's like...
All right, what is your grade for the Big Top Pee-wee?
I'm going to leave it with a C.
Okay.
Because I think it was pretty entertaining.
I debated between C and C minus. I don't think it's that entertaining for an 85-minute movie.
I think... All right, we were talking over it a little bit, to be fair, and that was my fault. Because it wasn't drawing...
Yeah, because you were bored.
Which is average. See,
yeah.
all right.
I mean, look, I have more of an association with the character, so...
So I laughed
Makes more
sometimes.
sense.
I actually liked some of the visuals with the circus. I liked the little woman. I liked them adding them in there. I know it wasn't the best
Yeah,
effect.
that's fine.
The
effect was terrible.
That was cool. I liked the growing of the plants with the speeding up of the frames.
Yeah, it was okay.
The hot dog tree. I really liked the concept.
But do something more with it.
the animals and stuff.
Do something more with the hot dog tree.
I was so sold from the first movie. I like the potential for Pee-wee.
Okay.
And I agree. I don't think they totally sabotaged his character, but they got pretty close.
Yeah.
So, but the performance is so strong. Like if he were,
but even though it came back around, just the sexualizing of the character, I just think was a mistake. Big mistake.
It was a big mistake.
Yeah.
All
right, C for you.
Just to see. It's a C minus.
C
Fine.
minus. It's
Fine.
a C minus.
I can't.
You know it is.
Because C is like just okay, and this was maybe a little.
Here's why I know it's a C minus.
Why?
You've been spending.
I can't just agree.
You've spent 6 minutes now trying to defend your C, and all you're doing is repeating bad things about the movie. Because you're trying to convince yourself that it's not a C minus, but it is.
I have to agree with you. But I'm not trying to just be agreeable. I
know.
I feel like a lot of these late videos I've been agreeing with you on the food.
Well,
and I'm just like...
Okay, here's the thing.
And I'm like, I don't just agree with everything he says on his channel.
No,
like,
you don't. But the nice thing about these long-form videos that we didn't get to do in Film Fanatics, where we're doing 6 minutes reviews of movies for 3 people, is that, we're able to talk out. And you've turned me around on things too.
Come to
some sort of an agreement about, okay, you're right, this movie is more of a this.
it's more like
You
on
know.
this end. Like I definitely don't think it's like a B.
I mean, Tim and I do that with the Disney videos too.
You try to find.
We try to find some kind of common
like
ground.
an official grade almost for the video,
Yes,
which I
yes.
think is good.
Yeah.
Find that. Yeah, you're right. So I agree.
Rather than Siskel and Ebert for Pee-wee's Big Adventure, one gives it an A, one gives it an F.
Which, by the way,
I don't know.
I want
thumbs
thumbs
try
up,
and
thumbs
watch
down.
that.
I don't.
Well, it's Rotten Tomatoes.
It's too general.
It's Rotten Tomatoes. It's either a plus or a minus, and I think there's
This is-
too many shades
and,
in between.
And I know that people like the chemistry,
Yeah.
and that's a whole different
All right.
video. But
I know.
I'm just saying that those guys had like a minute to talk about a movie. Right. Like that's not.
Yeah, because they were showing clips of it too.
Okay.
So it's like,
oh, I really thought this.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's all about who gets the last line. Like, okay, well, great, I give it this. Boom. Like that's it. And then you're like,
well, I always
that's
got
frustrating.
all right, but I always got the sense that it was a longer version, and they just edited it. I mean,
I want to see the full combo.
All right, hold on.
Oh,
they each had their own columns in Chicago newspapers where they could write as much as they
I
wanted.
know, and we're talking about newspapers, we're talking about
right.
TV. We can just upload our video for an hour.
You're right. Bottom line is, when I saw that there was 27 minutes left on the camera, I said, "There's no way on God's green earth that Joe and I can ever talk about two movies in just 26
Dan,
minutes."
I didn't think
But
that I was going to care. I had no
You never
desire.
do.
I didn't have any desire to ever watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Adventure, yeah.
I was about to say Playhouse. And I'm glad I did.
And that, yes. Thank you,
Glad I
Connor,
did.
for the suggestion. This was a lot of fun.
Actually, yeah. I did not
Something
think
different
so.
for the channel, which I always am looking for. So yes, everyone out there, if you made it this far,
You
God
can
bless.
get a video like this.
But yeah, you can get an hour-long video about your favorite movie too.
That he'll force me to watch no matter what it is.
But yes, we thank you for the suggestion. Please comment below, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out Merlin the Mighty channel.
Thank you.
Posting a lot of things lately about movies specifically too.
Yeah, I take requests too if people like me to review Evolution.
Mostly more nerdy, sort of geek,
Sci-fi,
culture
fantasy,
type stuff.
superhero stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, by the way, are you going to go see New Mutants? Off topic, but New Mutants comes out finally today, I guess, by the time this goes up.
Oh.
If you want to see it, I'll see it, because I do want to. I've been reviewing a lot of new movies on my channel.
Dan,
so
if you can get me a way to see it, I'll see it. But I will tell you,
I can't get it in for free. I don't work at Regal anymore.
If you
So
if your theater has it, I guess I'll see
All
it so I
right.
can talk about
Very
it or something.
good.
But I will tell you something.
I know you have no interest.
I have.
I know.
Never
all right,
have
all right,
I ever
all right.
been.
I know. I shouldn't have gotten him started, guys. I'm sorry. I know about the New Mutants. I just was wondering, because you do a lot of geek culture stuff on your channel.
At this
that's
point,
all.
I don't care, even though you think I would.
Fair
I
enough.
don't care anymore.
All right,
I don't-
very good.
I'll still watch it.
All right,
I
very
don't-
good. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you
If
next
you
time.
made it this
Bye.
far.